So I think this is going to be the new part of the video, and we are going to now go in and we are going to do the background. Now remember, we spoke about, and we're still on Matthew verse 4, okay, chapter 4 and verse 6. And we are taking those lines. He will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. All right. So now what we are going to do is we are going to now start diving deeper into the text. Into this now. Remember, I said to you that you should at least read this whole book once over to be able to understand the context here now, right? So now we are doing background, and some of the questions you want to ask yourself in background is you want to ask who wrote it, who wrote the book, who wrote this particular part over here, who is the author of it. We can go with who is the author of it. We can go with who's the main character in the story, okay? But normally who means who wrote it, right? Okay. Then the next thing we ask ourselves, like who, in this case, we'll go a little bit further because there's a conversation happening over here. So who can be the author, but who's the main characters in the story, okay? And then you go who and whom. So the author and who is being addressed in this chapter over here, or in this verse over here, right? Then the next thing you will do is, where did this take place, okay? Where is this taking place? When did it take place, okay? Why did it happen in the first place? Right. So if we have to answer the question who, right? So we know now that who wrote this is Matthew, the tax collector, wrote it. And then in this Bible over here, this verse mapping Bible, they kind of give you a little bit on the book introduction as such. So the author of Matthew, the book of Matthew, is Matthew, and he's also called Levi. They speak about the fact that he was a tax collector. Okay, and when was it written? Between AD 50 and the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, and it takes place in Judea. Right. So that is what they're telling you about the book of Matthew. All right. But if we go into this verse here that we are actually mapping, we will see now when we start reading this, we can gather a little bit more from it, and we can make this verse more personalized, because otherwise, if you look at this now and you are verse mapping more than one verse in the book of Matthew, then your who will always be Matthew, okay? And your whom will always be the people of Israel, or the Gentiles, or you and I. You understand, because we are reading the Bible, okay? So if we go in a little bit deeper over here, okay, then we will be able to say, okay, but in this chapter here, in this verse here, what's happening? So verse mapping is more of a granular level in terms of understanding that verse in the whole chapter, okay, in the whole chapter, in the whole book, kind of a thing. And that is why verse mapping is different, and that is why verse mapping takes longer to do, and that is the reason why you don't kind of verse map everything. You are driven by what the Holy Spirit is leading you to verse map, okay? But it so helps, like when you go back to read this book now of Matthew, and you go, I know exactly, I know now, I know quite a bit just on these 5 lines or whatever. I've got so much of information on these 5 lines. So that is one of the reasons why I love verse mapping. So let's see now. Let's go. And now we are going to do background. Right. So what I do now is I work in my book. I work in my book and I do background. So for example, if you see here, let's take the last one I probably would have done over here. Can you see I've got background, I've got cross references, I got context, I've got summary, then application and prayer. And I always keep my application and prayer at the end because that is more personal. That's more personal than it depending on your circumstances. It depends on your season, what you want to actually write, what you actually took away. Something might stand out for me, but may not necessarily stand out for you, kind of a thing. So I keep my prayer and application in the back, just so that if someone just happens to look at this, they don't necessarily, look at that. I mean, sometimes it's quite personal. Sometimes, you can share it with others, depending. And you'll find a lot of people don't share it because you got to respect the fact that probably it's like, kind of personal for them. Yeah, so background, who, whom, where, why, when. Okay, so, yeah, and I think it's very much of how you want to approach it. Right, so let's go with background now. So background. So I kind of like these markers because they don't bleed through so much. See, they don't bleed through so much. And it's the Delhi, something about Delhi. So South Africans, this is the Delhi something. Delhi, yeah, Delhi. And I bought it on Amazon, South Africa. But they are out of stock at the moment. Okay, so let's go to background. Okay, so what am I going to do now under background? So I am going to start answering the questions now. So for example, I'm going to answer who, right? Who. But I'm not going to answer this who wrote the book, because I'm in the book of Matthew. I'm going to take it a little bit further, as you know. Who is talking here? Now, I know it's the devil talking, okay? Because what I will do is I'll say, okay, let me just go and read now. Jesus is tested in the wilderness. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The devil is who's addressing Jesus here. Let's see if we are right. The tempter, devil, came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Because remember, now he's hungry. So the devil is saying, if you're so hungry and you are the Son of God, you can actually change that stone into bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. And I think, okay, no, so that's not related to that. Thought it was. Okay, then it reads, yeah, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. And now if we look at that word bread, we know that Jesus is also referred to as the bread of life. Okay, so and we know that Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, was called the house of bread. So you can see that bread doesn't only have a singular meaning over here. Doesn't have a singular meaning in the Bible. But then if you verse map that, you will find out what bread means in this verse over here. Okay, but then the devil took him to the holy city. The holy city, where's the holy city? So if you want to find out now, where's the holy city? Okay, well, why didn't they say Jerusalem? Why did they use the word holy city? So, I mean, even if you look at verse mapping that or something like that, where you dive deeper into it. Maybe Matthew calls it the holy city. Maybe maybe elsewhere it's not referred to the holy city, but it's referred to Jerusalem or something like that, right? So you can see how interesting the Bible is, okay? And had him stand on the highest point of the temple, okay? So now the highest point of the temple is the pinnacle of the temple, okay, in Jerusalem. If you are the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. And that's what we just studied. Jesus answered him, it is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And this I will give you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. And Jesus said to him, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then the devil left him, and the angels came and attended to him. So if you look at this as well, the way it's going, it's like, firstly, turn the stone into bread, okay? Then after that, it gets a little worse in terms of temptation. He's trying to say that, okay, but if you know, I'm taking you to the highest temple, point of the temple, the pinnacle of the temple, and he says, you know, you didn't, turning stone into bread was one thing, but now throw yourself down. So it's getting even, the challenge is getting even not harder, but more easier to die, if I could put it that way, right? Throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels. So he's saying, oh, well, if you, the Son of God, throw yourself down, and you shouldn't die, because God should command his angels to come for you, right? And then the next one is, when he realized all that is not working, he says, I will give you everything, right? And then Jesus says no as well. So now he leaves him. He tempted him 3 times a day, and he left him, okay? But we know that's not the end, right? Jesus begins to preach. So we're not worried about that. So who? So I am going to write here, it's the devil. The devil. Okay, I'm just going to write that because I've got a little bit more later on. So people may not agree with me writing the devil, but that's what I see from the story. And I think it's important that you also look at what you see, okay, because you are the one doing it, but still stay on track, kind of a thing. Okay, whom is the devil addressing? He is addressing Jesus in this. Jesus, okay? And then the next part is, where is this happening? Where is this happening? Wrong. Where is it happening? So remember, the devil started with his temptation at the Judean desert, okay? Because then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. Okay, so he started there with the stone. But this verse over here is when he took him to the pinnacle of the temple in Jerusalem. Okay, so I'm going to say this actually took place on the pinnacle of temple in Jerusalem. Okay, the next thing I need to ask is when did this happen? Okay, now we can break it down and say, when did this happen? After, so it was after Jesus was baptized. And he spent 40 days and nights in the desert and nights in the wilderness. So if you are enjoying this, let me know. If you would like more like this, or you would like it where I just run through it very, very quickly, okay, and do rather what is it called? I can't get the word now. I can't get the word, and my eye is itching. And then why? Why? What is the reason for this? Okay. So why is he doing this? The devil is doing it to tempt Jesus's faith, like how we get tempted, and see whether he will succumb. And it is written for us to see. The why could also be, why did Matthew include this in his book? Okay, and it is for us to see that just like how we are tempted by the devil, okay, and Jesus too was tempted by the devil. Jesus as a man was tempted by the devil, okay. He went through the same things we went through. He went through hunger just like us, and he went through hurt, he went through pain just like us, okay. But it is to show that Jesus the man stood strong, and we too need to stand strong, okay. Right, the next thing is, the last one is, okay, so I'm done with that.